Costs in general are always a big limitation in e-commerce. This is especially true for return costs. Not only the delivery itself is expensive, it's especially the returns that are expensive for e-commerce and for e-shops in general. In Germany alone in 2019, for example, 532 packages were being sent back every minute. Each return produces costs in the returning itself and the handling afterwards of about 20 euros each. Most products are being sold again, but 4% of them are actually being destroyed, either because it's not even possible to sell them again, or it would be too expensive to check them in a way to make sure that you can send it again. Thinking of return costs, it's important to calculate your real costs. Here is a little example. A shop owner tests out two different marketing channels. Both channels will get 10,000 euros in investment for marketing issues. The conversion rate of channel 1 is 6%, whereas the conversion rate of channel 2 turns out to be 5%. The revenue of channel 1 is 100,000 euros, the revenue of channel 2, 80,000 euros. As long as we only look at those numbers, it seems like as if channel 1 is the better way of doing the marketing. So channel 1 could be, for example, SEO marketing and a special campaign there. But let's take a closer look at the numbers. If you add some more information here, then you will see that in this case, channel 1 has got a return quote of 45%, whereas channel 2 only has got a return quote of 25%. Probably because by using channel 2, it was easier to communicate the real value of the product you sell. Therefore, the customers had the right idea in their mind of what they will get at the end, so they didn't send it back that often. Altogether, this actually means that channel 1 turns out to bring a gross margin of 15,000 euros, whereas channel 2 brings in a gross margin of 36,000 euros, because you don't have to spend that much money on return costs.
Another big limitation in e-business is online piracy in different varieties. Fake shops, for example. So shops that only take your money, but you won't get the product you expected to. This, of course, undermines the trust in e-business in general, and therefore it's not good for e-marketing. Data theft is another big problem. So different ways of stealing your data or the data of potential customers. This also undermines the trust in e-marketing in general. Deep frauds are getting a problem. We talked about that already. Think about the deep fake videos we talked about already. So, or fake president frauds, where, for example, people try to undermine security barriers in different companies to convince, for example, the secretary there or someone else to send money to a foreign bank account by pretending to be their boss. And of course, we have got bad bots at the end. So computers, programs, software that pretends to be human and that pretends to be potential customer and tries to get a benefit out of different web shops. Run, for example, by your competitor. We also have got different ways of blackmailing, which of course is something that undermines the trust in e-mobility, in e-marketing in general. Like for example, DDoS attacks, where for example your competitor tries to slow down your website, or we have got ransomware, so software that tries to blackmail you, malware, and again different sorts of bad bots. So what are those bad bots I'm talking about all the time here? Bad bots are, or bots in general, is a sort of computer software. There are good bots, which we really want to have. For example, the search engine bot from search engines. So it's a computer program searching through the internet to find new websites and therefore to make those websites available inside the search. Google and every other search engine runs and uses those good bots, of course. But there are also bad bots. So bad bots is a sort of computer software that tries to do something bad. Well, that's the name, right? For example, think about WordPress websites. Really, a lot of websites all over the world are built by using WordPress, which is not a bad thing in general. WordPress is quite good software, actually. But the problem is that due to the fact that so many websites are built using WordPress, a lot of people started to build bad bots so a software program that does nothing else, but it looks for security gaps in existing WordPress web pages, all automatically. So it's not a human person anymore that checks out your website and tries to get in there using easy passwords and stuff like that. This is computer software that does that. Altogether, estimations say that about 40% of all the internet traffic comes from bots, from good bots and from bad bots. So why are bad bots bad for e-commerce? Well, for example, because they do price scraping, which means they try to find out what is the price of a product you sell in your web shop, just so that they, on your own website, on their own web shop, can go a tiny little bit cheaper than you are. And therefore, it is more likely that people will buy the product in their web shop and not in yours. The same thing can happen with the content. For example, descriptions you have to describe your product in your website, on your web shop. There are robots, so computer softwares, that actually steal the text, maybe even the pictures and everything else you have around your products. And they will use it for their own shops or to build up fake shops, for example. Also, some other things can be an account takeover. So they try to hack into your web shop to get access to all the data there, to take over your account. Or they can create accounts, lots of accounts, fake accounts in your web shop, which is not good for your data, for your statistical data, of course. There are different ways of using bad bots in terms of credit card fraud, of course. Denial of service is another possibility. So by using lots of bad bots, they can slow down your website. Gift card balance checking is another big issue where it's all about if you use gift cards in your web shop, then they can find a way to undermine your security levels there and to use the gift card accounts. Finally, we've got denial of inventory. So, for example, you have got 10 pieces of one product available in your shop. If bad bots come and put all of them in their own shopping cart, then no one else can buy that anymore until they delete it out of their shopping cart. So even though you do not sell any of these because they are not going to buy it, they make it impossible for other people to buy this product. We heard a lot about technical limitations now, about delivery problems, about returns, about software that we use. But let's not forget, we talk about people. All our customers are people. And there is one big limitation we have in general in e-business. It's that it's not so easy to work with emotions online. And for that, I've got a little example here. Think about the following. How much do you think you can, how much, for example, is a bottle of schnapps? Not a very special schnapps in general, but just, let's say, apple schnapps or pears or something like that, you know? If you go to a supermarket right now, you might find out it's, I don't know, maybe €9, €8.99 a bottle, something like that. In terms of marketing, what can we do to double the price now? So instead of €9, what do we have to do to be able to sell a bottle of the same liquid, the same schnapps, for €18? And if we have a solution for that, let's double again. What do we have to do to sell it for €32? And so on, and so on, and so on. And at some point, you will find out it's getting harder and harder to solve this problem by doing marketing, by, for example, putting on a nice etiquette or a new bottle, or coming up with a nice name and a good name for it, by placing it in the right shop where you expect the right customers. But for example, do you think, is there a way to sell one of those bottles for €128? The Styrian Abacus Apfelschnaps is an example of how it is possible to do something like that. Abacus started out as a normal schnapps, but with the help of clever marketing, we were able to create a really nice story all around the schnapps. So it was all about storytelling. It was about creating something interesting, something people talk about, based on a very simple main basic idea, which actually was about the history of the area where the farmers are from. They all come from Buch bei Weiz, and there a long time ago the Celtic people lived and had a village there. And there is one very famous Celtic, you know. It's Asterix, Obelix, and so on. And Miraculix probably is quite famous as well, I guess. So Miraculix was a person who was sad to be alive and was able to create a very, very special liquid. And we did something a bit similar there. And at the end, we were able to, or they were able to sell one bottle of Apfelschnaps for €144 each. So this is something that only worked because the customers didn't buy the liquid itself. What they really bought was the story around it. And the really important part of the story was that there were really a lot of events going on. Events where people were allowed to come and to be part of the story. So it's nothing that worked online. It's something that really works offline, where you go there, where you are in the field, helping them to get to gather apples, and where you can watch them doing their magical things. Maybe you can take a look at the little video. I've got a long link down there. And there you can see a bit about Abacus. And you will figure out by your own that this is something that will not work the same way online. Let's now come to the final chapter of limitations, the communication. We talked about that already a couple of times, that in general online communication, of course, is limited compared to personal communication. We don't have body language, for example, and we don't have a lot of other aspects that we are used to if we are able to talk to someone else face to face. So altogether, online communication is a bit tricky, and we have got different kind of problems there. Not only because it's virtual, but also because there is a possibility to misunderstand something way easier than it would be offline. Also, we have the problem that a lot of content created online quickly gets out of our control because it's user generated. So think about all the possibilities of customers to comment on your products or to give other people an impression of whether they like your product or not. Let's say on Facebook or on different platforms where they can rate your product and your company and stuff like that. Another problem and another limitation is that e-commerce and online shopping especially, but in general e-commerce, is not only a global thing, but it's also a timeless thing. It's something that happens all around the clock. So you cannot be sure at which time your customer or your target group tries to get into contact with you or is interested in your product. Therefore, it's way trickier than if you're offline and you have got a normal shop with opening times, and whenever your shop is open, you are there for your customers, and when you close the doors, that's it. We don't have that online, which makes it more difficult, of course. Also, online communication is pretty slow actually, because very often we have got the problem, for example, think about email communication, that you say something and then you have to wait maybe hours, maybe days for a response. So online communication is very different to what you're normally used to offline. Communication in general always means that there is a sender on one side and a recipient on the other side. And the sender tries to deliver a message and gives the message a meaning, of course. So the sender has a very unique idea of what he want to say. But there are different instruments the sender now can use to communicate this meaning to the recipient. Words, intonation, context, body language, all this stuff. And most of those aspects are not available online. So the problem is that whatever the recipient understands might not be what the sender wanted to say. The last aspect I want to talk about is user involvement, because there are a lot of different ways of involve users online, actually way more than we have offline, which is a good thing for e-commerce. Users can be, of course, customers. This is the most common way. Users can also be consultants because they give you feedback on your product. They give you feedback on you and your company and what they expect you to be and to do. Users can also be supporters. Think of word of mouth, for example. They are willing to spread products they like. They're willing to spread ideas. They're willing to talk to others if they like, but also if they don't like what you are doing. Users can actually also be financiers. So think about crowdfunding. Or they can even be inventors by giving you ideas of how to solve problems, by having new product ideas, for example. Also, your employees, for example, can have ideas for marketing, for new ways of internal communication, all that stuff. And very often, it is easier to create this user involvement online instead of offline, as long as you accept the limitations we talked about already. So let's sum up. A couple of times already, so-called marketing experts told me that online marketing will be the only sort of marketing that survives, and that it is the only really important sort of marketing. But let's face it, that's not true. Online marketing, e-business in general, has got lots of limitations, and therefore it will always be just one part of your marketing activities. But all the limitations we have already, and all the ones that will come up in the future, are just challenges for you that you, I'm sure, will be able to cope with. Therefore, I say thank you for your attention and I wish you all the best.